Hello, everybody. Happy Valentine's Day. We are so excited to have you here with us today. I am really, really excited to jump into today's episode with the guest that we have. But before we do that, happy Valentine's Day, Dr. Hersh. How are you doing?
I am great. Happy Valentine's Day to you. Excited for this episode because we're going to be celebrating relationships and couples and really how coaching can transform relationships. And so I'm going to let you introduce who we have with us today.
All righty then. I'm really, like I said, so excited. Just seeing them together for the first time for me on the screen kind of brought a little tear because you can see their joy and their just the contentment with each other. I can see it. Maybe I'm just making that up, but it did. And it touched me a little bit. But I am so excited to have Sonja and Claud here. This is one of my favorite clients. I should say that about all my clients, but this is a physician couple, honestly, guys. And it's a mutual coaching couple in a sense where I started coaching with Sonja and she told her, well, I'll let her explain how it all actually transpired. But in a nutshell, her hubby, Claude, began coaching with my little partner here, Dr. Hersh. And so we have a little foursome, but not really, but kind of a foursome. So yeah, so I'm super excited. Sonja and Claude, take it away. Tell everybody here a little bit about yourselves and how you met each other. Let's start with that too. That'll be neat to hear.
You want to kick it off?
So, yeah, how did I met Claude? I was a med student and he was my resident that I thought was really attractive. And I wasn't supposed to date him, right? He's my senior. But one day after the rotation was over, he paged me on the hospital paging system and was like, hey. And that's how it started.
How about you, Claude? Is that the right story or is that her version?
Was it genuinely a hey?
There are some obvious embellishments, I think. I think it was the classic medicine love story of, two people working together and got along well. And I like to think that I had a little bit more flavor to my page, but it really was a page.
Hey, it's all good. It works, right? It got you to where you are right here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So we were both going through the medicine step ladder. And so as a result of that, we were actually long distance for quite a long time, 4 or 5 years of long distance before we eventually got married. So, we came out of that, I think, maybe even stronger than I would have imagined, just because we learned how to communicate.
Yeah, but we still need lots of help.
It's interesting because my wife and I dated long distance for 2 years before we were finally in the same city. And it is interesting because you hear all of these stories about how difficult long-term relationships can be and how maybe they don't work out. But I think our relationship was strengthened in the distance. We were, communicating 1 or 2 hours every night on the phone. And I think in some ways, if you are committed to a relationship in that way, it kind of almost builds intimacy in a way that you don't get when you're living and just passing each other in the hallways. Sometimes I think my wife and I should be scheduling an hour or 2 hour phone call every night like we were doing at the beginning of our relationship because we were able to communicate so much better at that time.
And it was a big, it was really meaningful to me, right? Because I was like, this person wants to talk to me, right? It's not hanging out with me, doing fun stuff. It's definitely not physical touch. He's just is choosing to hang out with me and my, thoughts and feelings as opposed to, doing stuff in person.
Yeah. And I'll echo that. And I think, Michael, your point is very good that I think there's, maybe we'll get into this later, but I think sometimes when we're together in person, it's easy to develop sort of a complacency in a relationship that maybe you have expectations or, just it's easier to get caught up in your life and sort of forget why we're here together. And I think having that dedicated time just to focus on each other really was very beneficial for us early on.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, we were communicating, I thought, well, right. But then life goes on, residency, new job, you're finally practicing on your own. Then you throw kids in the mix, and then like, it's just like slowly falling apart, right?
Yeah. So tell me, like, what you describe pretty much everybody, like when we go through training and we don't get that break, or we don't get that time to actually remember how to go back to living like normal. We just kind of go into this rat race of, okay, now we got to start the career. We got to be an attending. We got to have the kids, the house, all the things, all the responsibilities. And I have this person here kind of helping me get through some of this stuff too, but I'm not necessarily taking them for granted, but they're there. So
Yeah.
tell us, I guess, when you started to recognize that something needed to change, and what kind of led you to that point for yourselves.
So basically, my body was so tired all the time. I would come home, shoulders aching, exhausted, and I would be like, when is bedtime? So we can like put the kids to bed. And then even when the kids were in bed, I was still too tired to emotionally engage with my husband. And it was crazy, right? I have this beautiful life and I wasn't happy in it to the degree that I had expected to be. And I was just aging way faster because I was filled with fear of stuff, and my brain never stopped. It was like, to do. I'm planning this. Like, I wasn't enjoying my life, period, at all.
Yeah. I mean, I'll echo that. I mean, I think rat race is a good term. I mean, it felt like life felt like a churn. I think it increasingly felt like a churn. And, it's funny, you think about how you have these goals in life, and then once you get that goal, everything's going to be better. And, for me, it was each goal, I got past my fellowship and into, my career. And I thought it was going to be easier, but it was harder. And then, we got married and I thought it was going to be easier, but it was harder. And then we had kids and I thought it was going to be easier, but it was harder, way harder.
Well, that part, I don't know why you thought having kids is going to be easier. That somebody told you the wrong story there.
Yeah, right. No, but it felt like a constant need to check boxes, and it constantly felt like I was sort of just behind. And I think, the consequence of this sort of feeling like life is sort of out of control and you're sort of racing to keep up with it, at least for me, led to a degree of disengagement, of just feeling like I don't have control of anything anymore.
Yeah.
And on top of that, I'm bordering on being a failure. Sort of the story I was telling myself is I'm not being as successful as I want to be. And, my sort of maladaptive strategy to cope with that was to just completely disengage.
And I obviously don't know what's going on in his head. And all of our fights are in the flavor of, you don't love me. Like, you put work ahead of me and our family. Work is your number one priority. That was what was going on. I felt like the work was his focus, and we were just kind of the side product in life.
And I'm sure this is probably a common thread for a lot of couples, but I mean, my perspective was, I'm just trying to support our family. I'm just trying to, make sure we have security. And here we are arguing about the way the dishes are done, or here we are arguing about the kids' bedtime and who should be doing what. And to me, it felt like, she's picking a fight with me about something so small, and why does this matter? And why am I being,
and I'm like,
why am I
how does it not matter that the counters are wiped down? Like, I don't want to walk downstairs in the morning and have like crap on the counters. Anyway, it was very important, right? But like a complete disconnect on why it's important to us.
What the true reason was, what was really behind it, because we are not expressing that. Like, we each have our own thoughts and ideas about what's going on, and then what the other person is thinking and why they're behaving that way. And it may not be accurate at all. And so then we just keep getting farther and farther apart rather than coming back together.
Yeah.
I'll also point out that what Claude is describing here about kind of focusing on providing for our families, this is a very common thread for male physicians, right? So when things are feeling busy and there's all of these changes at home and you're trying to figure out, how do I deal with all of these things that I'm feeling? one of the easiest ways that men in general and physicians in particular manage all of these uncomfortable things that are going on is we're like, okay, well, my job is to provide. So I'm going to divert my attention to work, right? And work, Arpita and I have talked about before this idea of buffering, of kind of focusing on something else, diverting your attention away from where the discomfort is in an effort to avoid feeling that way. And work feels productive. It feels really great if I can be providing for my family and working harder and earning money and supporting my family. And at the same time, you're not getting at the underlying issue, which is the discomfort that you're having from all of these changes that are going on in our lives. And so, like you were alluding to, the fight is never about the fight. Like, it's not about the thing that you're fighting about. It's about all of these other things that are kind of lying under the surface, and then every once in a while kind of bubble up to the surface.
And I kind of used his work to justify his lack of involvement, right? I'd be like, he's the breadwinner, and maybe I shouldn't be mad, that he's relaxing on the couch. He deserves it. But then I'm like, but I'm still so mad, like he's relaxing and I'm working. Yeah.
So, and obviously we've worked through that, right? But I want you, I guess, to first start with like how you talked about how you got to a point where you recognized that something needed to change. So tell me what happened from there. Like, how did you find your people? How did you figure out who's the right person? What are you going to do here next to make a change?
Yeah. So my sister, she's a physician as well, and she had gotten into physician coaching. And I think I was crying one day to her in our backyard, just being like, life sucks right now. And she's like, Sonja, life is what you make out of it, and starts lecturing me and starts talking about circumstances are neutral and your mindset and blah, blah, blah. And it was just like hocus pocus, whatever. She doesn't get it, right? She doesn't get it. And I was on a luxury spa vacation with Arpita. Well, not with Arpita, but she was part of the group of women we were with. And I don't know what magic Arpita did, but we ended up having breakfast together. And as always, I'm very open and I like pour out everything to this woman, right? And I wasn't expecting anything other than just emotional support, I guess. But Arpita was like, Sonja, you don't have to feel this way. You can feel better. And I think that was what sparked the hope, is maybe I can feel better. Even though I've read plenty of self-help books and have, gone to the gym and made a to-do list and like a priorities list, like it wasn't working. But Arpita, as a kind, loving human who was in my shoes at one point, told me you can feel better. And then I was like, okay, I got nothing to lose. Let's try.
Yeah, I mean, from my standpoint, when this happened and Sonja said she was going to start doing coaching, I was still in the pre-contemplative mindset. I was still just living in my rat race world. And I'll tell you, my personality is not, I like to call myself a natural skeptic of virtually everything. And so, show me the evidence. I'm an oncologist. And so I demand, level 1 evidence for everything. And so I sort of maybe eye rolled a little bit and said, okay, go do that. And, I'll do my thing. And time went by, 3 months, 6 months. And I think I could see significant changes already in her mindset, in her attitudes, and just kind of general enjoyment. I mean, I think it was not to where it is today, but it was already improving. And maybe I was a little bit jealous or curious. And meanwhile, I was bottoming out. Mm-hmm. And so, and she kept saying, you should try it, but it wasn't pushy about it. And then, I think one day I just decided, you know what, why not try it?
I'm just so thankful. That's it. I'm just listening to you guys and I'm just thankful to see that, because it reminds me so much of Michael and I. It's feeling like we're doing something that helps other people. I'm like trying to like not have tears like the whole episode. Yeah. So
Yeah. Well, I was like, Claude, you can coach with Arpita. He's like, well, I need a man. And so Arpita is who I guess roped in Michael. I mean, she gave a list of like male colleagues that she endorses, and then Claude went through them and, you know, did the interview with them, but ultimately clicked with Michael.
Mhm.
And so, Claude, you were saying you're a natural skeptic, which I'm in that club with you, 100% natural skeptic, born and bred. And so, talk to me about what it was like for you to kind of go through that interview process, choose a coach, and then what was the coaching experience like for you?
Well, I don't know if it's changed. At the time, there were very limited options in terms of, you know, there were only a few male coaches at the time. And I really specifically wanted a physician because I didn't feel like a non-physician would be able to understand my background. And, you know, now I think in retrospect, maybe a non-physician would be able to, but I'm so glad that, you know, I basically researched your background and I was like, okay, this person sounds like someone who has a similar background to me. And you know, I'm so thankful that I, you know, found you. But, you know, I approached it as, okay, this is going to be my cheat code in life. You know, I'm going to learn all of the life hacks to make myself more efficient, to, you know, trick myself into believing things and trick myself into being happy, and I'll have more time and it's going to solve all these little problems that I have. And so that was sort of how I approached it initially. And, you know, I'm thankful. I think you were very patient with me at the very beginning because almost all of what I came to you for was career focused. You know, how do I further my career? How do I become more efficient? How do I use my time better? You know, and then it started with the how, you know, how do I do this and what's wrong? You know, and then it gradually became more of a why am I struggling?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And I think you allowed me to sort of figure this out on my own with maybe, you know, the right prompts here and there. And I think it culminated, I was thinking back on this, you know, there was a night when, you know, I don't think we had really spoken much about personal life. It was really all career focused almost. And we had a big fight one night. And it was over, you know, again, I don't remember what it was. It was probably, you know, I didn't like the way she loaded the dishwasher or something. And, you know, we unpacked the events of the night and there was clearly more under the surface than, you know, met the eye. And we talked about how I was feeling about it. And, you know, I think it opened my eyes to what really was going on in our relationship and started to put myself in the mindset of being maybe a little bit more neutral and a little bit more inquisitive about what was going on. And to really start to wonder, okay, really, why did we fight? Why was I so upset? Why was my wife so upset about something that seems so meaningless, rather than just saying like, oh, why, you know, she's just being upset about something else. And so, you know, I think that was the first time I started to realize that this is something more than just a life hack for my job. You know, this is like a different mindset, and really, you know, our relationship and our love and our family are my first priority. And why shouldn't that be what we're focused on?
I mean, it's impactful because I think we don't recognize how many layers there are. And I always make it akin to like peeling an onion because we show up very reactionary sometimes because that's what we've been kind of accustomed to do. It's become our routine, our natural habit to react in a certain way when we see certain events happen. That essentially they're what we are activated by. So our brain remembers that or some similar type of episode, and we go back to that and immediately just respond that same way or react that same way. And it's not productive for us or the environment. So when we start to really kind of break down what's going on underneath, what's the source, the cause of that way of thinking, that's where we can kind of see what caused the emotions and then the reactions that came from that, like verbally or outwardly, and decide if we really want to continue that way. But it takes the intentionality of going back and being willing to be vulnerable and curious about it honestly with just love for the other person and for yourself so that you can do that exploration. And I think that that's really what's allowed a lot of us to make changes in our life. And we say, yeah, we're going to be mindful, we're going to, you know, be more aware, but it really takes intentional work with it, you know. And I think back, you know, my husband and I have been doing this or familiar with coaching now for 3 years, 4 years. And it's not that we don't have setbacks. We still have setbacks. We'll have times where we're like sitting there and we're bickering and arguing. And then when we take a minute to separate and just reflect, we start to realize, okay, you know what? You're exhausted and you're reverting back to old neural pathways, old ways of behavior. So it might not even be that there's something more deep. It's just not having the awareness of how tired we are. We just need to give ourselves a little bit of grace to rest, et cetera, et cetera. So, and sometimes it's more than that, but you have to give yourself that chance to have that reflection afterwards so you can go back and repair. So it's the rupture and the repair part of that interaction.
I'll also just add, I think that is kind of the gift of coaching, is that when we are kind of in these arguments with our spouse and in general, it's very other focused. We're always looking at what has been done to me. And I think what the gift of coaching, at least for me in my relationship with my wife, has been the simple question of what if it's me? Considering that I am the problem, right? I'm harnessing my inner Taylor Swift now, right? It's me, I'm the problem, right? And I think before coaching, I don't really ever considered how I might be the problem in these arguments with my wife. And that has been a true gift. And to be able to hold the mirror up to myself and be like, you know, what if it's me? Because a lot of times it is me.
Well, I'll just ricochet off what you said, and that I'm sure I said I'm sorry many, many times after a big fight or after something, but I don't know that I ever meant it the way I mean
Right.
it
It
now.
was I'm sorry to like shut it down.
It was an I'm sorry, let's end this fight and move on. But now I've reflected on this, and I'm sorry because now I see that, I did something, or said something that maybe I wish I hadn't said, or that I, truly feel sorry for.
I think that these are great examples like that. Just, I think when you're saying this, I'm sorry, what comes up for me immediately is, I think I've probably said this to you, Sonja, but what's the cost of being right also for the intimacy in the relationship, right? Because what I really, really realized is that a lot of times it's that stubbornness, again, stuck in that same old pattern that I have to be right. And for all of us, we're physicians, right? And so we're raised in this environment where we are responsible for patients and their health and their livelihoods and their life, quite frankly. And so we have to be a lot of the times right. We are the ones in charge. And so when we bring that type of behavior home, it doesn't really serve us when we're in a relationship where it's supposed to be more kind of giving and, having those want matches. And so one of the things that really resonated with me was recognizing that when I have to be right, it's costing me the intimacy of our relationship. And so, yes, there's some things that I do feel like I need to be right about or need to explain to help the other person understand. And there's some things that I can say, you know what, I don't really need to fight this battle. It's not really worth it. And I can let this one go. But just having that ability to decipher which one's which and being more willing to let go is I think, very important.
And like just not blaming him right now. Like I feel it so much that I'm married to this amazing human and he's good inside. So when, he doesn't wipe the countertops down or whatever, it's not like he's doing this in spite of me, or he's, so busy with his life, he doesn't have time to remember what's important to me. You just like forgive, and it's like suddenly not important. And then I'm like, well, why do I care? I don't care. Our fights are so much shorter, / if even fights, more just like, okay, like disagreements. In fact, so we were thinking, what was our last one? I had a girlfriend come over this week on like a Tuesday afternoon, and she wanted some wine. And I don't really drink, and Claude has 3 wine fridges. And I was like, here, take this one. And she thought the wine was good. So she's like, actually, I'm just going to take home this bottle if that's fine.
She thought the wine was really good.
I get a sense where this is going.
Take this bottle. Like, why is Claude going to care? He has so much. And, later that day, I was just like, oh, by the way, Claude, Jasmine came over and took some wine. And he's like, from where? And I showed him. And like, as soon as I showed him the spot, he was like, and like, you could see he was really upset that this particular bottle of wine was just like taken. But he didn't like get mad at me. We quickly came to the conclusion that it's in his best interest to make some areas of like wines that he's okay, that if I just like randomly decide to take or cook with, it's fine. So like our arguments are so much less of a problem.
I think that's so super humorous because Claude, I can see your perspective because my husband would be the same. He'd like, you did what? Which one did you give?
Yeah, I was like, wait, just as long as you didn't take from the bottom shelf, then we're okay. And she said, ooh.
I'm laughing so hard because I have had this exact argument with my wife, and now I do exactly what you just outlined. When I know that my wife is going to have people over, I set aside the wines that she can just grab from and pick whatever she wants so that that exact situation doesn't happen again.
Gosh, this is what happens when you have wives who don't drink wine every night. Yes, that's okay. It's all good. So tell me some other areas that sound like, I mean, this is a big one where, your relationship in terms of your arguments, you're not bickering as much. What are some other areas that you feel have been so impactful where your interactions and relationship with each other have changed or has changed?
I think our energy level is way better. Suddenly I have all this energy and there's more to burn. So it's really shifted from I'm so tired at the end of the day to like, what else are we going to do? What should we do this weekend? And, like taking long weekends and doing fun stuff with the kids, going hiking, just our life is so much fuller because of what we think we can do and like add in there as compared to like, okay, we just need to like get through the weekend and rest,
Yeah.
And I think even more than that, because we do more together, we have more energy together. I think that also, at least for me, frees up what I used to feel was, I guess, kind of a guilt when I did want to ask for time for myself. And I think we both feel more, or at least I know I can only speak for myself. I feel more comfortable now taking my personal time to explore my hobbies or, do whatever I want or need to do without feeling like I'm asking for too much, because the time that we are together is so much higher quality that we can afford to be separate and pursue our own interests also.
Right. We recognize that it's to our own interest for our partner to be happy in their own pursuits in life. So supporting those instead of seeing it as time away from home or time away from family.
And if you had to pick the biggest change, I think that you guys have noticed in yourselves out of everything, the one thing that you would not change ever again or go back to, what would you say that is?
I think for me, I think we both recognize each other now as being this intelligent, thoughtful, loving, and amazing person. I think it's just the way we perceive each other, I think, is that, yeah, Sonja's my wife, but she's also this person who has feelings and desires and interests, and appreciating that. So it's not, we're not just role players. I'm not husband, she's not wife, I'm not, breadwinner or whatever. We are who we are. And, that's who we fell in love with. And, we're always that person.
And for me, I think the biggest change that I feel is like, I just feel weightless as I work on unburdening myself of my incorrect thoughts and knowing it's okay to outgrow relationships and filling myself with more energy. I feel like I'm floating and just like happier overall. And then it trickles into compassion for everyone else. Like, I do such a better job sitting with my patients in clinic and just talking about the difficult, hard, squishy stuff, because I feel a connection with everybody to a much deeper level.
Yeah, it's interesting how this conversation has come full circle, because when you were dating long distance, and I'm going to use my own, long distance dating with my wife, those hour and 2 hour long conversations, it was all about appreciating each other and the time that you were spending together. And as Claude was pointing out, this complacency typically develops in relationships the more time you spend together, you're around each other, the appreciation maybe isn't there like it could be. And I think what coaching has brought back to your relationship that you were just highlighting, and certainly what it has brought back to mine, is that appreciation. It is appreciating the person for who they are and what they bring to the relationship, and not the lack, not the things that they're not doing, because it's where you direct your attention that cultivates the relationship that you're going to have. And I know that that's what coaching has gifted my relationship as well.
I truly feel like we live our life now together. Like, yes, we have our own goals and, stuff, but he is here with me in this life. It's not, you do this, I do this, and like slowly the gap is widening, right? Yeah.
Now, there are going to be skeptics out there, like both of you were when you initially found coaching. And so what would you say to the skeptics out there that are like, this is a one-off, this isn't real, what would you say to the skeptics?
Well, I was a skeptic, and here I am. Never, ever would have imagined myself doing this, let alone being on like a podcast talking about it.
Talk about our feelings. Yeah.
Never could have imagined myself having the kind of conversations that I have nowadays. So I guess maybe I'm a one-off, but I don't, I think I had pretty typical attitudes that a lot of, I think particularly men have in medicine, maybe even outside of medicine. Yeah. So I think the other thing I would say is, it takes two. So, yes, you have to find a coach who you like and, who can help you. But I think you have to approach it with a bit of an open mind, and it doesn't have to be fully open. Mine was not fully open when I came into this, but I think you have to be willing to be a little bit humble when you start, because, or at least willing to admit that things could be better. Maybe that's the best way of saying things, is that I think once you realize that
we're not fine,
that nothing is inevitable, things can be better. I think that's, probably the initial step.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And for me, I think I was like, what is this woman going to tell me that I don't already know? Like, I'm a physician. I know how to coach people. I know like the importance of daily habits. I know all this. And it's not necessarily entirely new information, but it's creating the space to reflect and process and have somebody guide you, recover what you already have in you, right? Like, it's not like I'm a different person now. I've just learned with Arpita's help to find the goodness in me that was always there, just, shut down by culture and society and life. Yeah.
So good. So good. I'm so, again, just so thankful that you guys are here and that you gave yourselves the opportunity to do it and to have that open mind to try. Because I think a lot of us are in that same boat when we hear about it, when we see other people who are talking about coaching and what it is. It's so easy to say these people are crazy. They don't, maybe they have low self-confidence, which is always what I always thought, they just don't have their act together. Like, I don't need that. I can handle it. And it's amazing how much we don't know, right? And once we can just even consider the option of maybe something being a little bit different, a little bit better, to try something new, it can blow the doors wide open with a completely different life, I think. But
yeah. I mean, we all the time say it, like, the two of you changed our life. Like, this is one of the best things that's happened to us. Yeah. And now it's this, how do we help others feel as good as we feel, which was the main reason I was like, okay, yeah, I will do this podcast, because I want everyone to feel this light.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's, for me, I'm not going to speak for Michael Hersh, but that's partially why it's joyful for me to do the sessions, because you start to feel so gracious when you see you're changing other people's lives. I mean, we help. This is what we do as physicians. We want to help make people better, and we want to help them be the best they can be. And this is a different way of us being able to do that. And that's what's been so powerful for me, and why I don't ever see myself stopping with doing this. So
I mean, I just want to take a moment to say how much we appreciate both of you coming on, sharing your story, sharing kind of things that are not easy for all of us to talk about. Arpita and I do this every week, but it's not easy to talk about kind of where you were, where you've been, and where you're headed. And you guys, we just appreciate all of the things that you highlighted today, because I think that this is such a common experience for physicians and physician couples. And it is, as Arpita was just saying, it is, I don't know any other way to say it other than just so heartwarming to see both of you together in your element. You know, Arpita and I coach both of you, but we don't coach you together. And so this is the first time that we've kind of all hung out together, and it's
Right.
really
We know a lot about each other indirectly.
exactly.
maybe we should come over and we'll open another bottle of wine.
Yeah. Claude picks,
I'll
though.
pick
He
the
knows where
bottle.
the good stuff is.
Yes, I can't say exactly what he said and more, the love for you guys. And Claude, like you said, we just met you today in terms of in person, but the love is there, right? Because you're such an important person for the person I work with. And so that's what we do, is we just have love for everybody that they're involved with, who's important to them as well. And so I'm a little bit surprised, but it's been like constantly dripping. So I'm sorry about that, but it's just a testament for how proud I am of you guys for doing the work for yourselves. And so just am thankful. But if this episode resonated with you guys, and if anybody is on the fence, I would say just check us out. Have that open mind. Schedule a discovery session with Michael Hersh or myself, and we will talk to you about this, and we will get you through whatever might be holding you back, any limiting beliefs or obstacles that you think why this may not work for you. We can work through that with you and help you see that, because this is at least the 5th or 6th physician couple that I know. So it makes a difference, this work. So you just have to trust the process.
It's all about the possibility. What if things could be different? What if this is the thing that makes things different for you? There's only one way to find out. Well, thank you both again so much for being here. We appreciate you both so much. Happy Valentine's Day to you and to our audience. And we'll see everybody next time on the next episode of Doctors Living Deliberately.
Happy Valentine's Day. I love you guys.
Bye.
To you too.
Take care. Bye.